environment at the time where other carriers were not hiring outside of their own carriers. And airlines then had a history of promoting from within.
Sure.
So they grew their own.
Okay.
And but it was easy for me because they gave me a pay raise and I had a secure job. So and I wound up in in San Antonio, Texas, and the manager there didn't want to have anything to do with customer service. And of course, that was really good for me because I didn't want to have anything to do with the ramp. So he took care of the ramp, and I was his customer service guru. And so we had a wonderful working relationship. What I didn't know is that Delta was checking with them every day, wanting to know how's so-and-so working out, is she doing okay, how's he doing, whatever. And I guess Joe gave me such glowing he had such glowing remarks to make about me that within a 3-month time frame, they offered me a promotion back to a manager. And I'd opened a couple stations for Western Airlines, so I opened the Long Beach station for us, for Delta, and which made me the only Western Airlines manager that was promoted back to a manager in that short time frame. And I was only in Long Beach for about 6 months, and my regional called and asked me, he said, "How deep are your roots in Long Beach?" I said, "Well, when I left Las Vegas, I left home." So within a nine-month time frame, I was promoted to the manager in Ontario, which was a much larger station.
Yeah, Ontario's a lot bigger than Long Beach.
Oh, much bigger. And I worked in Ontario for about 10 months, and then I was promoted to a regional in Atlanta. When they asked me to go to Ontario,
and that's an executive position. Regional manager
yeah.
is an executive
yeah.
position.
And
station manager is not.
A station manager is, well, a station manager is really one of the biggest compliments you can be paid as an airline employee, especially if you started at grassroots.
Sure.
So to become a station manager was a big deal. I was very flexible. If we had a disabled airplane, we dealt with it. If we had a surprise and had one come in that had a problem, we dealt with it. And one thing about, and I'm sure it's this way with any corporation, there are always downline, upline people that you can call to get the assistance you need to get your job done. You're not out there alone. You make the decisions, but there's always someone that can support you if you need support. And basically, the airlines are so heavily regulated that you have to have that backup. And, because basically a lot of the decisions that you have to make as a manager are you have to get someone in your corporate office that's familiar with whatever those regulations are, especially if it's a mechanical or if it's weather or and anything. When you're dealing with people, back in those days, the airlines were so customer oriented that you were concerned and had the support to do whatever you needed to do to keep your customers satisfied. But back to your question, about the environment that I worked in at the time, most of our managers were promoted up through the system. It wasn't a requirement to become an employee. And as you were promoted up the ladder, all of your promotions would say they would like you to have a bachelor's degree or the equivalent of in work experience. And I was always fortunate enough to get jobs that degreed people interviewed for because I had the equivalent of in work experience. So they knew me.
Maybe more than.
Yeah, they knew me, and they knew what I was capable of doing. As a matter of fact, I never will forget, Harold Oxiger was my senior vice president with Western Airlines. And I guess when Delta bought us, the CEO, Ron Allen, called him in, and he said, "Hannah, he never asked me anything about any of those white guys, but he said, 'Tell me a little bit about Hannah Brown.'" And he said, well, all I can say, Ron, is Hannah will work a circle around any of those guys. So
I want to say something that, you've commented that maybe you were to some degree picked on because of your ethnicity and your gender, but you've also stood out because of your ethnicity and your gender, and it may have gotten you noticed where otherwise you might not have been noticed.
Kind of hard to miss me, huh? Yeah. But it'd be very difficult to miss me. I tell you, one of the interesting things that happened when I was the manager in Ontario, because I was asked to go to Ontario as a troubleshooter because we had some issues that were not being dealt with, and Harold told Ron, he said, see if Hannah will go. He said, because she can straighten it out for you. And a lot of this happened that I learned after the fact, because, when you're in the fire, you really don't know you're in the fire because someone's trying to put out the blaze. And I was in the baggage claim area in Ontario, and I had a passenger that was really uptight about something. I can't remember. They back then, if you didn't give them the world, then they threatened to sue you and whatever. Now nobody expects anything. But he finally got so disgusted with me, he felt that he needed to go to the next person up the ladder. So he looked at me and said, well, I'd like to speak to your manager. And I said, well, I am the manager. And he was so exasperated, he just turned red in the face, spun on his heels, and walked out the terminal. So I thought, okay, I guess they took care of that.
Guess he didn't get where he needed to go.
Yeah.
Let me shift the subject a little bit here, if you don't mind. What religion were you raised in?
Baptist, Southern Baptist.
And are you still involved in that?
Yes.
So
in the same church I was raised in.
Where's that?
Second Baptist Church.
Great.
On E and Madison.
In what ways are you of service to your community?
Oh, I do many things.
Give us a few examples.
I'm on the Valley Hospital Board of Trustees. I'm on Olive Crest Board of Trustees. I'm on the Nevada State College Foundation Board, the Latin Chamber Foundation Board. And all of these are volunteer boards that contribute to our community. I try very hard to work with boards that have an interest in youth education. I raise lots of scholarship money. And the Urban Chamber of Commerce, who I was president of the Urban Chamber of Commerce for 8 years, on the board for 10 years, and they recognized me as being president with the title President Emeritus. So I'm honorary president forever. And when the Urban Chamber started our foundation, our 501c3, they named the foundation after me. So it's the Hannah Brown CDC.
I noticed that in what you sent me.
Did, yeah.
Please tell us what the Hannah Brown Redevelopment Agency does.
We actually contribute money to small businesses. We do small grants to small businesses and to try to give them footing and help them get started. We also all of our scholarship funds are run through the Hannah Brown CDC. We gave, I think it was either 48 or 52 scholarships this year. So,
and that would be to help someone attend university?
Oh yeah, to get to college. Since I didn't, I was not, when I graduated from high school, we had no colleges, so if your parents couldn't afford to send you out of state to college, you had no pathway to higher education. Of course, my parents, I couldn't afford to send me to college, so I went to work. And I continued to work, rather. So I don't ever want to hear another young person say they can't go to college because they didn't have an opportunity. So I help young people get to college.
Why, of all of the nonprofit community service organizations you could be involved with, did you select the Chamber?
It kind of happened. I was on a committee that planned a conference, and out of that I was invited to consider sitting on the board. And at that time I had just returned home from my tour around the country with my career, And I just returned home from Atlanta because obviously when you're promoted to a corporate position with these corporations, you know you move to wherever the corporate office is. Our office happened to be in Atlanta. So I had just returned home from Atlanta, and I was asked to be, if I would consider being on the chamber board. And I thought, well, that sounds pretty interesting. It's grassroots. It's the community I was raised in. It might be an opportunity for me to give back to the community that produced me. And that's my heart's desire. So I agreed to work on the board. And after about a year and a half, I was offered a position as vice president of the board. And I think about 10 months later, I was offered a position as president. And the rest is history because it enabled me to get involved in the community. And that was what I wanted to do. And then it really got me involved with the small businesses. And it really went into more areas than you would expect chambers to go, but I'll kind of do anything anybody asks me. That as long as I always say, as long as it isn't illegal or immoral, I will help. And I found that people started to trust and believe that I was willing to help. So they would call and ask, Hannah, can I meet with you? I'm looking at trying to start a business, or I'm looking at whatever their endeavor is. And I never minimize anything that anybody is interested in doing, because I always felt that if I expect you to support me, I have to support you. So from one thing to another, I wound up being president of the chamber for 8 years, which was quite a long time for a nonprofit. Each ethnic group has their own chamber. And the urban chamber is the black chamber, like the Latin chamber is the Hispanic, and the Asian chamber is for the Asian community. So,
do you guys send representatives to just the regular chamber?
We do from time to time, yes.
But normally they're completely separate.
They are normally separate, but we support each other because as president of the urban chamber, James Yu, who was president of the Asian Chamber at the time, Eloisa Martinez, who was president of the Latin Chamber at that time, and myself created the joint chamber efforts that we have. As a matter of fact, the first joint chamber luncheon we had over 1,100 attendees.
Great.
And we've maintained.
You raised a bunch of money for that too.
We did good. As a matter of fact, Caesars is our annual sponsor, and they have been for the last 7 years. So we have quite a partnership with them.
Please tell us about 100 Black Women.
Okay, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women is an organization that is for black women. It's run by black women, and it's about black women's issues. And we're an advocacy organization, and we advocate for black women.
In what way?
Our national initiative is HIV/AIDS. So we embrace the HIV/AIDS, and we try to bring awareness to women that are not really aware of how this disease affects them, how vulnerable we are, and that's women of all ages. How vulnerable we are.
Even women who think they're in a monogamous relationship.
Exactly, exactly. So it's really, we're advocates. We just started a PTO at Matt Kelly Grade School, and we now have enough parents as officers so we can effectively run our PTO. And we're teaching the parents of these little children. It's in the Enterprise area, in a very difficult area. And we're teaching these parents how to be business people how to conduct meetings and how to advocate for their children.
And that's through the Urban Chamber.
No, that's through the National
100 Black
Coalition of
Women.
100 Black Women.
Great.
Yeah.
What's Olive Crest?
Olive Crest is is an organization that really supports orphan children in foster homes, foster care, mostly foster care. We try to get children out of foster care into homes, or at least assist with keeping them
Into
placed
an adoptive home.
into adoptive homes, yes, or at least assist in getting them into foster homes where they receive pretty normal care. And I tell you, I think a lot of times when we see people that really go without a family because they can't be a natural birth parent, and I think how sad, you know, if I wanted a child, there's so many children out there that need families. And basically, if you're around them, you love them all. I went day before yesterday, we gave school supplies to some of the Olive Crest kids. And you just want to pick them up and bring them home.
Can you give us a couple of shining examples